a gentle note before we dive into today's episode. Today's conversation goes into some real and honest places. We talk about personal struggles, life transitions, and some of these experiences or words used can be triggering to the people in my audience. If anything we cover today brings something up for you personally, please know you don't have to sit with that alone. I've added some support resources to the show notes for this episode. They're there for you whenever you need them. Take care of yourself while listening. Now let's get into it. Today's guest has one of the most layered stories I've had on this show, and I mean this in the best way. Katrina Burke is a writer, counselor, hypnotherapist, and strategist who has been coaching women in life and business since 2017. She's the author of 4 published books, the latest called Sleeping with the Guru, which she describes as a real love story about a decade of being single in a strange modern world. But here's what you need to know before we get into her work. When you understand what she went through, it's very clear that this is her life's work. Chronic illness and the end of a long-term relationship, a decade-long situationship after that, and before that was even a term, bullying, healthcare nightmares, dating nightmares, and in 2017, a moment that changed everything. She has found her own solution to all of it. She no longer has the health issues she once had. She now helps hundreds of women heal, build businesses, create the relationships and family and peace they wanted. And she channels it all through a very specific lens, the unconscious mind, the psychology of why we stay stuck, and the practical mechanisms of how you actually change. Kat, welcome to Unclocked and Unbothered. I am so looking forward to having you on.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, of course. It's so funny how everybody's always like, oh my God, didn't expect
Yeah.
that. Because you get to see your accomplishments kind of through the different lens,
Yeah. And I think
right?
when you've been doing something for so long, and I say it a lot, it's an interesting dynamic now to be building a brand that was built off a lot of pain,
Mm,
but to no longer be in that life anymore, but still be telling those stories and still be speaking to those women. But that's not my life. But, and then, of course, the main concept that I work with is not continuing to tell the story of pain. But here I am, like trying to navigate telling the story of pain, but not being in pain.
hmm.
Very
Yeah,
weird.
definitely. I think there's a lot of like diamonds that come through pain, right? And
Yeah.
it's super
So,
important to get to have people see almost like a well-rounded version of that person because we always kind of look at the after and what they have what you have now, but it's super
mhm.
important to learn and get to understand what are the things that you had to go through because it can resonate with a lot of people, right? And you have so much
Absolutely.
depth, so I'm like so excited to get into this.
An interesting dynamic as well. I was just saying this to a friend who works in the industry as well, is also still being in certain things as a leader.
Yes.
There's sometimes this inability to capture, like, wait, you've had all these amazing changes, but maybe you don't have all the things yet.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't always see. Usually we're looking to the people who have everything sorted. And it's like, but even they don't usually have everything sorted. And so I'm playing in that dynamic now of like, I'm in this beautiful state of life. And yet I still experience a lot of resistance in people trusting my work
Mm.
because I don't have a relationship or I don't have like $1 million business or something like that. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really interesting working with like these expectations that we have in society now of what we see as authority.
Oh, for sure. I definitely see that when people are kind of put on this pedestal and then they see like, oh, they don't have it all together. It almost like it brings them almost down from that. And we're all human at the end of the day. We're going to have to learn through these things. And I actually
Yeah.
see like from a healer's perspective that I love when I get to learn more about that person and that they actually have things that they're still working through because it means you're human.
What my clients say too.
Exactly.
Yeah, they always love it. They're like, "What's happening in your life this week?" And I'm like, "Girls, we're supposed to be talking about you."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay, well, this is what I'm working on."
Hmm. Yeah. Or actually, let's start at the beginning of the hard part because we are going to spend a little bit of time here because I think your story, like the context really matters. So, what was life like actually like before 2017? What were you dealing with and how long had it been building up?
That's a really great framed question. So, I guess for me, I would say I was very unconscious, very much just a
Mm.
naive little nugget in the world until I was about 23 and it was 2011. And that was when I'd been in a relationship for many, many years. And I thought it was just going to be the one that leads to the next thing and the next thing. And unfortunately, just due to, in hindsight, things like one getting into partying and just this, yeah, certain type of culture that was really being pushed on us at the time, my partner at the time just was not coming on that same journey with me. And so I left. And I thought I was leaving that relationship to be like, all right, I've said no to the wrong thing. I'm going to go straight into some kind of marriage with my love of my life. And that's not what happened. Of course, I was not being plunged into the world 7 years prior when I'd met that person and everything was pretty, you know, no dating apps. Everyone just meets someone
Mm.
and they actually date each other and they be with each other and they do the thing. That was not the world I was coming back into. And we had just had things like Tinder launch. Hookup culture was really being pushed on everyone. I was told incessantly, don't tell anyone you want a relationship. Like it was really interesting programming in hindsight to look back now and be like, oh, like we were being told this is the way. And so we were doing it thinking this will lead me to the things that I want. And there was also what we now call a situationship, but we did not have the words for that back then. Someone I did think that I was going to be with who was saying all those things. And just year after year, I just kept letting myself trust that maybe that was just all going to work out. And again, we didn't have all of this amazing support on the internet. We didn't have access to the world's information then. So we just had like, this must be the way it goes for me. And so year after year, I just kind of got on with my life. I worked for a big company. I like did my yoga training. I was kind of like dabbling in like, I'm starting to feel kind of sick all the time. And this whole hookup culture thing is clearly not something I want to be in, but I'm in it and everyone's encouraging it. And I started getting physically sicker and sicker and sicker and no
Mm.
doctor could tell me what was wrong. I developed like 8 different chronic health conditions by a certain point. By around 2017, I had like 7 different labels and then an extra one on top of that. I was just like, and no solutions.
Mm.
And then there was the mental health diagnoses that started being thrown around because I was losing my mind. And it was maddening alongside all these horrible dating experiences that just never went anywhere. And here I am, from this again, like that. I'm still that naive little bubble, really. Just like, oh, like surely you meet someone, you like them, you decide to
Mhm.
date and build something, and maybe it doesn't work out. None of that happened. Like I literally could not even. I think I went. The reason I decided to write the book was I got to about 7 years of never being approached. 7 years of never ever having a guy make the first move or ask me out on a date. Of course, I'd had the 3 a.m. text messages, I'd had the like dodgy approaches in bars, but never that respect of like, I would like to take you for coffee.
Mm.
And I said around the 7 year mark, I was like, if this keeps going and I have to deal with all these weird experiences, I'm going to have to write a book. And then it got to 10 years. I was like, oh crap, I have to write that book, don't you? The sickness kind of led to the obsession with healing my body myself and then also healing my mind myself. So I became really obsessed with human behavioral psychology. I've done so much study and education and self-study because it that became my addiction. I still, nothing's a great addiction, including learning
Mhm.
sometimes. But at least I'm grateful that I did not have the money to become addicted to anything that broke me in other ways because this was not like I was just one of those women who, or those girls who didn't ever really want the career. I didn't really want all these things they were telling us we should be doing instead. I thought I was going to get married and have babies, lots of them,
Mhm.
and maybe like support my husband's business. Like that was my dream. And I was being told for all through all of my 20s that that was a wrong dream now. Like that's not the dream that women should go for anymore. That's not allowed, basically. And I get it. And I get all the reasons for that messaging, but there's so many women now, and this is the huge audience that I am growing, who seem to be resonating with the same experience that I've had. I guess to end off that story, I ended up after probably 8 or 9 years of chronic health conditions, I ended up finding some really simple solutions that resolved all my chronic health conditions myself, very naturally, very basic, which was the kind of open door to like, oh, okay, like you're powerful.
Mm-hmm.
You have the ability to like get still and receive information and action that information and solve problems. And so then I went from the physical health stuff to being like, how can I solve my mental health stuff? And same thing, I just chipped away at it, chipped away at it. And so the more I resolved things for myself, the more people were telling me I should help others. But because I still hadn't found a partner. I still was very like all over the place about like people from the past who I wanted it to work out with. I didn't feel in my integrity to be like, I can now coach others because I've sorted out a couple of things, which can be of value. But for me, for many years, I resisted coaching and helping others and resolving the final little bits of my health stuff. I had left my very stable job for the big company because I could, like, again, I was at the time still really sick, very rock bottom mental health. So I decided to leave and go and live in Bali. I went there and I lived with a local family for almost a couple of years so that I could. And I remember at the time, everyone was like, oh, you're just running away and living the dream on an island. And I'm like, I was still chronically ill, broke, all these people wanting my help, trying to build a business. So for me, it was more like a health and financial strategy so that I could actually afford to live in a place, eat the things I needed to eat to get healthy, and build and learn how to build this service for people. And I think in that time, I joined a beautiful network marketing company as well, which I found so powerful because I just got so much free education through that space. Plus, that was a lot of my health support that helped me heal my body. I kind of built the building blocks for my mastermind during that time, like prior to 2020. Then 2020 hit. And so most of 2020, I was again just restabilizing myself so that I could build this thing. And 2021 was when I officially launched my mastermind. And then that just started doing really well. And I didn't really know a reference point for how much better it could get. But now, and for many years now, it's just been this crazy thing where like my whole state of being feels different.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've felt that shift in my nervous system, but that hasn't just happened from some magical process or modality or like God coming through the clouds and blessing me. It's been all of those little adjustments and calling myself out and getting up in the morning and forcing myself to do a daily routine for a while and like really rewiring my body and my brain,
Mm-hmm.
and really working with those two together. I think that's the thing that I feel in my body that is so hard to describe, but it's also something I had no idea that I could reach for. Um, and so I want to share that because I think when we're in the funk or we're in the crisis, we usually just want to get back to where I was. And you probably don't want to go back because that got you to the bad thing. Instead of like, how can I reach forward to something that feels a little bit better? You can actually get forward to something that's so much better than you can comprehend from that state. And I couldn't comprehend this feeling of calm, even when my life still has all sorts of chaos. It's just like, oh, okay, cool. I know how to deal with this. It's obviously so much in the journey, but in a very long nutshell, that's what it's been like.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. It really sounds like, the journey that you went on are still continuing to go on. If you make these like little shifts every now and then, it adds up. You've moved past that
Yeah.
like that final step and now you're like what's next? What's next? And it's just your whole journey has been what is next for me. Now that I've
Mm,
like healed and done the somatic like nervous system work, my body is so calm that it's like an open ground. It's an open space for me to receive more and more and more. And also give more. to your clients, right? A lot of women can resonate with growing up traditional dating or like the old school dating. And
Mm,
you were at that pivot point where when you left your first relationship, it was 2011, it was a whole new dating world. Masculine and feminine energy is a little bit distorted in this world today. You also mentioned how like your body was getting sick, right? I've resonated with that because when I was kind of thrown back into the mix after being like married, I was 24 when I left my marriage. And you're in this dating world. It was the first time actually dating because when I met my first person, that was that like first boyfriend, first everything, that's it. So when I left it, I was thrown into this world of like, you don't need to be in a relationship to do these things. You can date multiple people at once. And I never found that very
yeah.
I'm a
I
very
don't know how people do
whimsical.
that.
hmm I've grown up with like the love stories and like the romantic comedies, and it's just like, no, like that's not for me. But I was like, let's try it, like I'm a free woman now. Let's try it. I have my own place, blah, blah, blah. But I was noticing that as I continued to do this, my womb space, my body, it just did not feel like mine. It was almost like I was giving pieces of myself away. It was just like not for me. And now, like going through those tough times and learning, I can honor that, hey, like I'm just a traditional person in a modern world, and that's okay. There's people like me out there. And if there's not, I'm happy and I'm okay being alone. Right. So still to this day, we're still in this society. And I've noticed like through your story, we have a lot of like similarities. Like you were kind of thrown into these things to learn from it so that you could help others. And even when you were seeing people asking you for help, these were like your first signs and you're almost pushed into it. Like
Yeah.
for my healing work, like I started off connecting to people's future children. Like it's like there's the soul of their children or helping women in fertility. But now I'm being asked for more. And I'm like, I can't, like, I was only trained in fertility work. Like, else am I supposed to do? And they're like, I want to work with you one on one. So, as a healer, when you go through these things, the universe is going to give you more. And you have to
Yeah.
kind of be prepared for it to take it on. And you have to know that, like, it's meant for you. So, you're probably going to have to go through a few learning lessons along the way. All right, go ahead.
I was going to say, even that's just a really great example of, yeah, I guess the healer's journey or
Mm-hmm.
the woman's journey in many ways. Because we are, regardless of all the stories we're being told, like we are built to be mothers, we can be so much more. But from just a general physiological standpoint, all of our cells like are thinking this is something we're supposed to do. We have evolutionary programming in our minds that this is what we're supposed to do. Every month we have hormones going, this is what we're supposed to do. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. But there's still all the cells in your being are like, I want to be a mother. I want to nurture. I want to create. And so that's where that like more comes from. And that's where the people wanting support from you come from because everyone wants to be mothered. And we all have this, well, women have this like natural inclination to be a mother. And so if we can accept that, which I know it can be hard to sometimes, there's a lot of resistance to that. But I know I accepted that regardless of whether I was going to get to become a mother. I was like, I'm always going to have this urge. So, what needs to happen in my reality to support me if I'm not only going to always have this urge and maybe never get it? So, I'm constantly going to be dealing with grief. And then I'm always going to have people coming to me wanting help. So I'm like, and then I'm potentially always going to have my own little challenges I'm having to navigate. So for me, a huge thing that I create for myself and then I teach, especially my clients who are in certain similar roles, is it's like a kind of like a figure eight where it's like on one end you've got self-care and the other you've got service. And I feel like society wise, we've swung really hard into self-care in many ways, like me, my way, my rules, like I can do all the things I want. I'm empowered. That's great. But when we're completely not accessing the service side of things, there's always going to be something not quite right. And when we really start to do that, like, how can I show up and support myself today? Maybe I need to drink more water. I need to eat 3 meals or whatever it is. I need to make sure that I meditate before I look at my phone, or I look at my schedule so I can map out my day before I start dealing with the kids or whatever. Like, what is the self care that's going to support my service? There was a beautiful TED talk that changed my life around the 2017 mark when I was at like emotional rock bottom. And it's called Leading with Lollipops, and it's by Drew Dudley. He's a great leadership coach from Canada. I did a podcast interview with him once. He came on my podcast because someone tagged him. It was the most beautiful moment. I was so excited. The TED talk he did was just about this random moment in his college experience where he just did something funny, but that moment connected two people who then got married and had children. And they came around and told him years later, like, hey, you're the reason that random moment where you did that funny thing. Do you remember? And he was like, I don't even remember.
Mm.
He's like, something where I changed people's lives for their whole lives, and I don't even remember it. And that was so groundbreaking for me because I was like, oh my God, like every time we go out in the world, we're changing the world. Like we are rippling things through. So I think that's just a powerful, simple concept to play with if you're finding yourself in that space. Anyone
That's a
who's listening.
beautiful concept. I love that figure eight where it's like how like your self-care and then your service to others, because that is the kind of foundation of what I live my life with. And I think a lot of people should kind of go that way too, because there's a lot of misconstrued things that can happen on social media, as well as like spirituality. I think there's a lot of spiritual bypassing that happens nowadays because
Oh, yeah.
people just want to go quick to the results. They want to do all the angel numbers and all, let's manifest. But if you're not actually embodying and doing the shadow work behind it, it will feel very, very ungrounded. A lot of people feel like dizzy or they just can't tangibly stick with it for too long. It might stay, but it's not going to be forever. An example of what you just said is basically like this podcast. Like I always said, I don't know where this is going to take me, but if this can reach one person and change their lives from something that Kat said, from something that any of our guests said, then I'm of service to people. This actually makes me happy because I could be, working or doing something that's not as fulfilling to supply my own bag, right? But I don't think that's necessarily what I've been pushed to do. And I'm taking that leap to kind of see. But I've also noticed the behind the scenes when it comes to making a podcast, showing up. You're meeting different people all the time, and you kind of have to like take yourself out of being shy. I was always shy as a kid. I don't really like the sound of my own voice. I don't like being seen, but you're doing it for a higher purpose. You're doing it for others. You're being of service to others. That's a beautiful foundation of what you just said and something that I will carry along because it's very well said. There's not a lot of words that I can express to explain it that beautifully. You said that you channeled the fear energy from that moment in like 2017 into creating a life that you came here for. So what does that actually mean, and what was the first step that looked like for you when you made that decision?
So I guess the interesting thing is in the moment, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the moment. But in the moment of it, I didn't know the process of what I was doing. And then like, what are we, almost 10 years later, I actually understand the process of what I had been doing. But the moment was essentially I found myself having suicidal ideations. There's no simple way to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And it scared the crap out of me. Like I had always been that happy, floaty little, very excited about meeting my person girl. And as we have kind of been through, so much had not happened for so long, and so many other yucky experiences had happened in between. And don't get me wrong, I made the most of it. I traveled, I worked hard, I made friends. But none of it really, it was kind of like you were saying when you were partaking in the culture, we'll just call it,
Yeah.
of going out there and doing things. Uh, but I've also felt the same. Like in some cases, there were choices that I made, absolutely fine. Some cases there were choices that I would not have wanted to make, but had to. And every single time I felt again like I was losing pieces of myself. And I think getting to that moment was a culmination of many things like the sickness, a lot to do with probably drinking alcohol in my 20s and the pill ruining my liver and my gut. Um, so many things obviously contributed to the chronic health conditions, but also all of that stress. And when I started actually thinking and mapping things out. And there was a particular day after my 30th birthday where, like, the guy I thought I'd been seeing actually wasn't seeing me. He only wanted one thing and he didn't show up to my birthday and dumped me the next day.
Mm.
And then, like, my closest friend didn't show up to my 30th and went away with her new boyfriend, and a couple of other little things happened. And then I'd gone and gotten drunk. So I was hungover, which is just the worst thing for me or anyone to do these days, but just especially for me. And that day, having those thoughts like in my house on my own, it was this weird, very intense energy because, of course, there was so much emotion. Like, who is this part of me? Like, what? This is terrifying. I don't like, I want to do this, but I can't do this because what about my mom and dad? What about my sisters? What about whoever finds me? What about like, what about? I remember being on my kitchen floor, like dealing with all of this emotion, all of this energy. And that's the thing is emotion is energy. Good, bad, ugly emotion, it is energy. And the thing about energy is A, it makes up everything we have, everything we're looking at right now, our whole bodies, our neighbors, all the things. And energy you cannot get rid of energy. You cannot destroy energy. No matter what we do, you cannot just get rid of an energy. You can only transform an energy. And so back then, all I knew was I was just so upset. And somehow, I guess I eventually overthought it so much, the beauty of the female brain, because we overthink everything before we make a decision, whereas a male brain just goes, this sucks, take action.
Mm.
So there's a very different face of that particular event between men and women, which I think is really important. That's not being talked about these days. Um, but after overthinking it and realizing that I couldn't hurt all of these people and I couldn't go ahead with it, I was like, well, what can I do? Because there's just so much happening. And at that moment, I started listening to some OG classics like Tony Robbins, the original gangster of self development. Still to this day, love the guy. One of the few people I still to this day recommend outside of myself. I remember I just started getting up at 5 a.m. and going for a run in the dark, listening to Tony Robbins speeches. And that was what I did for like weeks. And then because I was watching a lot of him on YouTube, YouTube does the algorithm thing and it just started feeding me other people like Les Brown and I can't even remember, like some really great preachers who just have the really impassioned sermons. Oh, loved those. Running to those was always great. And there was always like that really dramatic music in the
Mm-hmm.
background. So it was great for working out too. And that somehow, because I was online a lot on YouTube and absorbing all these people, I started then going and learning a bit more about them and learning about their stories and learning that they had similar moments to me and learning that this is what they did. They started learning why things work that way and why their mind works that way and telling a new story. This is a real pivotal piece is stop telling people the story that you're broke, that you're being screwed over by men, that you're sick all the time. And that it still took me about a year to integrate properly into all areas because I was
Mm-hmm.
very much anytime anything goes wrong, I need to tell everyone everything that just went wrong and talk about it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And even a year later, when I was still quite sick in middle of 2018, when I finally started finding the solutions, I had to decide to have a one liner that I would go into work with because usually I'd go into work with like 100 odd people at the company I worked with. We were all very close. And I would be like, oh my God, I'm so bloated today. I'm so, my, because I had fibromyalgia. So I would be in these
Mm.
spasms of pain. And I'd just be like, oh my God, this hurts, this hurts. Oh my God. And so if I went in and I didn't say anything, 100 people would ask me, how are you feeling? How's your shoulder? How's your belly? Like, what happened with that guy? And so I had to have like a game plan of all I would say to them is, I'm figuring out how to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Just figuring it out. I'm learning. I'm learning how to heal. And it was so, I sounded like a broken record because they'd be like, but what about this? But what about this problem that you have? What about this thing you always talk about? I'm just figuring it out.
Yeah.
Like, thank you. How are you? And I learned quite quickly that a lot of the people who were my friends were only my friends because me talking about my problems probably distracted them from their own.
Yeah.
That was quite heartbreaking. But over the years, because that intense momentum of energy was directed into this thing, which then led me to this thing, then led me to this thing, and learning and learning and learning, is anytime anything went wrong or anytime I felt that negative emotion, I just asked, what can I learn? What can I use this as energy? And then more and more over time, especially as I got healthier and I learned more about my gut and my liver and my hormones and balancing out my cycle, the more I noticed that a lot of that manic bipolar that I had was just unbalanced hormones. But from that moment to this, it's like anytime I felt negative emotion, and I always do air quotations because, of course, for multiple generations, we've been told that emotion is bad. Now we, as our many generations now with access to information, have this, I call it a
Mm-hmm.
blessing of feeling everything come to the surface in a time where we don't have global war and famine and like having to, what do you call it? Like, I can't even remember the word, like ration food and hide in bunkers every weekend. Like, we don't have to do that. Like, I get to sit at home and watch Netflix with a heat pack and a cup of
Mm-hmm.
cacao that I bought from the local bulk food store and nurture myself in every possible way and feel all of the trauma potentially of my lineage. Poor me, right? Like, or oh, me. Like, okay, there's another layer. This is because I get to be the one who transforms that energy into something else. And honestly, like the bigger the hard emotion, the more powerful the transformation, the more you can transmute that into success, into calm in your body, into health in your body, into attracting beautiful community. Like the yeah, the possibilities are endless if we stop going, oh, bad feelings are bad, and
Mm-hmm.
go, actually, bad feelings are like the doorway to the good.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I think when you said that emotions are your energy, are the energy, and you take that to transform the experience, that is super powerful, what you just said. Because I teach women, like through my work, is that when you're going through pain or you're going through, what we call PMSing symptoms, right? These are actually emotions that are consistently showing up that need to be transformed. So that's why, yes, you need to take that time when you're going the 3 days before your period where you feel like so much hormonal things. You also have to take a step back and be like, okay, my body is actually showing me the exact answers that I need right now. If I can, set aside the grumpiness and fatigue, maybe let me write it down for when I can feel better in my follicular phase or ovulation, so I can create something and transform it at that time. So I learned a lot about how like the cycles when it comes to women are super powerful to learn about, because it almost takes a part of you where you can kind of step outside if you're dealing with hormones or like PCOS and things like that, and start to understand from a more like realistic perspective of like, that is not you. These are the emotions that the energy is asking you to transform. And
Yeah.
it was super powerful how you started to kind of rewrite your own story, like when you were going through your chronic pains. Like you would show up to work, and yes, I have a lot of stories where people love misery loves company, right? So they
Yeah.
just want to share their kind of trauma bond in a way of just complain. But when you
Mm.
kind of rewrite the story, so I just went back to, I've been out of my job. I got fired recently about 6 months ago, but every May we go back to a convention, just Ontario wide. It has nothing to do with the company. And I told myself, I'm like, I'm going to go to this, and I still don't have a job, but I'm just going to tell people, like, if they ask me, like, oh, how's like unemployment, or like, how have you been feeling since that? I'm going to say, I'm exploring what best aligned with my goals. Like I wrote it out. I'm like, I am going to just like say something that like I'm open to these opportunities, and how is your job? Like, you know what I mean? Like kind of take it off of me, but understand like I'm I'm scared. I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I'm going to say, hey, I'm waiting for something that aligns better, like, and kind of pivot from
100%.
there.
100%. And what you said about writing it down, it sounds silly, but it's so freaking important because when you have been in that program, and it's a program, it's like a
Mm-hmm.
neural pathway that's like firing all the time. Sorry, I'm laughing because I use some really interesting analogies in my
No,
in
I
my
love it.
courses. Um, but because that's just firing all the time, your brain knows, okay, when this person asks me this kind of question, I just say this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so your brain doesn't care about you having a new life or being happy or like having transformation. It just wants to keep you in what's safe and easy to keep you alive. And so you've got to actually be creating contingency plans to fully interrupt and have a game plan of what to do instead. Because otherwise, we fall into default all the time, right? We can do a lot of work on ourselves and then like get into a fight with our mother or something and be like, oh God, I just like fell into the old pattern. It's like, probably just blindsided by like an old pattern or an invitation to do something an old way. And you
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a contingency plan. And it can be as simple as having a one liner that you
Mm-hmm.
just hold on, default to.
Yeah, I always say that like you can do so much healing work behind the scenes, but it's not until you actually play it out and practice it in real life and whatever words are going to come back that you don't expect that you have to pivot from there. And you're literally rewriting the story by writing out like how you're going to move through it and then carry it out in practice, right? You also said that I wrote it down. You said that like it's almost this blessing to heal. I think for so long, a lot of us women go through like this survival mode, especially
Yeah.
as healers. We go through that survival mode of something that's happened to us. Thank you so much for being vulnerable with your story, by the way, that the things that have happened to you. But once you were like kind of moved past that, you've learned from it, you probably still to this day are like sitting on your couch and all of a sudden you get like this like wave of like, oh, this is the next thing that it's going to have to heal. And it's such a blessing because that means that I'm ready for my next initiation or invitation to do more deep diving into the story.
100%. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like, sometimes you have repeated things that keep coming back. And like,
Yep.
they always like lesser and lesser when they come back. But you're like, really? Have I not? Come on.
It's like all a test.
Yeah, or
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're in the online space. And like, I mean, I've constantly got these videos going viral, which luckily, like, I've built a beautiful community online, mostly of women. So most of the time it's just us all chatting about like, oh God, this and how can we make this better? But you know, I do over the years, I've had a lot of haters, a lot. And it's wild because even now, like I still always use it. And like sometimes you can read through some really crappy messages or comments and just be like, oh God, I'm sorry. Like I hope you're okay. But every now and then you'll get one, you're like, oh, what is that? Like, and you want to respond and get into an argument. Instead, you're just like, oh, okay, what is that? Let's just step away and go and work that out. And it's funny because so many people can get like scared or upset of that visibility and that kind of experience online. But for me, I'm just like, it's such a game changer because I'm just constantly getting these opportunities to like, oh, there's a little bit of me that still needs to
Mm.
be worked on. Which is yeah, can be constant but very fun.
Yeah, especially like in the social media world, you'll get people that don't understand you, and it's not your responsibility to make everybody understand you. I think your people will find you, but and those haters will kind of trickle in. Now, you take it as an invitation to learn from yourself, which is really beautiful. It's like, oh, those are the things that still kind of triggers me, or oh, like, a side of me that's not the best is coming out right now. But what did it
Mm.
feel like at the beginning when those haters
Oh,
were
yeah.
surfacing?
I think in the beginning, it didn't make sense to me because again, like I was such a naive little thing for so long. Like I'm talking until like my early 30s. And I just like giggle when I think about her because I'm just like, wow, she really did not know what the world was like. And the world can be so beautiful, but also I think especially post 2020, a lot has come to the surface for a lot of us. Um, so I guess in the beginning, I was more just like, huh? What? Why is everyone mean and angry? Like that's weird. And then as I do, I studied why we do that. And I really delved into the human psychology of that behavior. And then also, I noticed, of course, sometimes it would be women, but a lot of the times it was men. And that's when I also, like, of course, for my own reasons, started studying, okay, what is happening for men? What is happening for women? Why is no one dating? Why is everyone being horrible to each other? I became obsessed and I did go too far. Like, you just, yeah, you don't want to go too far in studying that topic because it's really depressing. I'm now having to like build up my excitement of the life again after being down,
It's
whether
too
it's
real.
like the manosphere side of things or the really unhealthy feminism side of things. I'm just like, oh, we're all cooked. I don't know how to save it. So I'm just going to try and build my belief and like be a vibe online and hopefully help other people build belief as well. Like, I'm very much of the understanding that we need men, but we need men, and we're not creating men in this world where we're hating everything that is men. We're hating and pushing it all down. So, like, I do have, and it's very unpopular, a lot of compassion for where they are coming from. And I spent many years trying to fight for that and like share that and talk about it with women and like help women understand. But all the while, men kind of got worse and worse and worse in my comments and in my
Mhm.
DMs. And I've been like stalked and attacked and all sorts of horrible things. And no man in my life has actually stood up about it and been like, that's wrong. We should do something. We need to encourage men to change. And I know that is starting to happen now. There are some really great and grounded and healthy leaders in that space for men, but it's going to take time. And so my messaging lately has kind of shifted because, I have this beautiful, wonderful community of women who are all in very similar experiences. We still want to, like, all I've been doing is trying to become the best potential wife and mother. Like, regardless of everything else I get to do, it's all that with that at the core. And so many women relate to that line that I constantly share. Um, and the thing that I'm kind of saying now is because I don't present being someone who can help you find your husband. I'm not a relationship dating coach. Like, it's been a side effect of the work that I've done with a lot of women that they've found a great relationship, which is amazing. Um, but I feel like sometimes there's a lot of pressure of people looking to me as the person who can either help them get that or not. And it's like, well, the way I'm seeing it is men might take a bit of time to come out of this funk that has been created by a lot of the messaging and programming that we were all encouraged to play a role in as well. And like, I mean, it's a whole other podcast to get into the
Yeah.
negative programming that women have been through. There's a couple of books that I love that are heavy reads, but Louise Hay wrote, not Louise Hay, that's not, she wrote Heal Your Body. That's also a great book. Louise Perry wrote a book called The Case Against the Sexual Revolution, and it's intense, and a lot of feminists will hate it. But I love to hold nuance on things because there's a lot that we don't know about why we fight for certain things in feminism that actually were not a thing at all. So when I see that kind of negativity online, it gives me the opportunity to go, hold on, drop into compassion for where that's coming from and the echo chamber that's in. And then also, like, how can I respond in a way that maybe just plants a seed,
Hmm.
um, instead of like being reactive or anything. It's just like, can I just share, well, actually, this is who I am, but it's okay if you don't believe that.
It takes a lot of work to take it from a compassionate lens. And that probably has come through your healing work. It strips away your ego in a way where, like, you go from less of a judgmental point of view and you go into a heart space of passion, of compassion. And whether we like it or not, we are a collective, and the collective is full of men and women, and we need each other. And we can start to see like the world like is shifting, especially like that's why I got into like fertility work, especially like on the energetic level, because you're also getting a lot of conscious parents waking up and being like, wait, I was taught, you listen to your parents and like you don't have anything else to say and that's how it should be. But children come down with such pure missions on this planet. They're here to rebuild structures, take away like the things that have not been working, to restructure the planet. And if we can kind of get to the parent to help navigate this and say, hey, I can learn from my child too. Their soul is wise. It doesn't matter what physical age they are, but they are wise souls. The more we listen to them, the more we can heal this world. I really wish I remembered this word. I would learn this so long ago, but it's like when you walk into this, like when you walk into a world, or and you have like these almost like these limiting thoughts. If you think that you carry out and you're like, yeah, all men are bad, you are going, your brain is literally like programmed to be like, I'm going to look for men that are bad, like to almost reinstill this thought that I have to help me understand the world more. But then if you, there's actually a world that full of men that want to, help women and help them and fulfill their desires and be fathers. And the more you actually defy the thoughts in your head and expand and see that there's people out there, it will shift a whole different perspective and almost kind of up level you to almost like vibrating at a different frequency. Like when you help your clients, you're not saying like, I'm going to help you like find your person. No, you're helping them embody the woman that kind of man or that kind of other person is can meet you at, because you can only really meet people where you're at.
You're right. You're exactly right. And it's not just, a spiritual concept. It's
Mm-hmm.
a science concept.
Mm-hmm.
It's your reticular activating system. So there's a part of your brain that essentially is looking for what you focus on. So they say anyway, that we are processing like billions of bits of data at any given second. And then your brain is having to filter that to like, I think it's like 40 or 50 or something like that. Um, which is wild, right? So
Mm-hmm.
how does it know what 50 bits to let you know about? It's what you're choosing to focus on. It's the story you're choosing to tell about your life. It's the content you're choosing to absorb. This is why I'm like, there's so much beautiful spaces for women online, but there are a lot of spaces that are like, we hate men, narcissists, gaslighting, all these freaking terms that are just being weaponized. And I get why, but they're not helpful because they are just creating a divide and a fear and a program of, oh, this is the only data I'm going to see. So even if there's a wonderful person in front of you saying relatively nice things, your brain's going to pick out the potential, possible little red flag ish in
Yes.
it and go. And the brain is so fast, it will just go, boom, 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 boom. This means this. Worst case scenario, get out. And so, unless you know how to A, create a new narrative to select new data, but also to slow down that boom, 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 to go, hold on, okay, I'm seeing a potential thing that I'm concerned about. How do I, instead of out or screw you, you're just like this person, how do I go, hey, tell me more about that?
Mm.
Like, give me all the data out of your mouth so I can learn more about the situation because so many people are passing up opportunities, jobs, like amazing friendships, relationships because of that one little thing of, nah.
Yep.
When we slow that down, which starts with telling a new story, oof, you just start seeing a whole new world. So it's
Yeah.
spiritual and it's science. They both agree.
That is very true. And you talk about the unconscious mind and like hypnotherapy strategy, the psychology of why we stay stuck. And you've touched on it a little bit here, but can you explain how that works for someone who's never heard the language before?
Mm.
Like what is the unconscious mind actually doing that keeps people in the patterns that aren't working?
It's keeping you safe.
Yep.
So I said earlier, the brain doesn't care about what you want. Your brain is constantly just trying to keep you alive. And so it doesn't care if you look nice today, as long as all of your things are functioning. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care if you have energy or if you're tired, as long as it's making sure everything's functioning so that you stay alive. It's the same as what it allows you to be led to and what it allows you to notice, because for your brain, safety is what's familiar. And so, unless you are constantly and consciously making an effort to find familiarity in the things that you want to experience, even if you've never experienced them before, and I can get into how to do that, then you're constantly just going to be, it's like those neural pathways that I did the little thing of before. It's constantly going to go, okay, here's an opportunity to change my life. And then it's going to find all of those potential red flags and go, oh, but maybe we're going to talk you out of it because, oh, like this or this or this could happen, like this familiar thing, and gets you back to square one. And you're like, how did I get back here? It's like, but that's what your brain thinks is safe. If chaos has been what you've experienced and is most familiar to you, if being discarded is familiar to you, if being hurt or abandoned is familiar to you, and you're not consciously creating something new, even if it's just a delusion in your mind, it's going to find its way back there. And it's going to be on a mission to do it. And it's going to be really convincing because it doesn't care. It doesn't know that this way that you could be creating leads to happiness and joy and success and health. It doesn't care. It doesn't know it. It just knows I have to keep you alive. I have to keep you safe. So I have to keep you in what we know. And so, in building something new and familiar, there's so many layers to it, of course, but it can start with a story. It can start with visualization. This is why vision boards became such a thing. It can grow from that into, okay, like, how can I make sure that I'm really owning that story? And maybe that means I need to change my environment a little bit. Maybe I need to adjust who I'm hanging out with for a time so I can really own this because there'll be people who don't want to help you own that story. Maybe it's, okay, hold on. What's the gap between who I am now and who I'm being in my behaviors and the person who has all those things? Definitely doesn't tell the negative story all the time because they're not in that life. Starts from those silly little affirmations that I say silly because it feels silly when you're in the old state. But the affirmation, the new story, the new one-liners that you say to those colleagues, and that starts to then open those data points to, ah, that person just showed up in my life and started talking about the same kind of stuff. Oh, that person just for me offered me a supplement that I've been rejecting for the last 3 years and I haven't tried it and nothing else has worked. So for me, I was like, I'll start taking that. 9 years later, taking the same thing, none of my health issues exist anymore. Like, but I never saw that because I was in this survival state of I have to keep doing things the same way. So there's probably a million different ways to explain that. And I wanted to give a little bit of like a how to of how people could start and then what it actually will start to lead to.
I see. Yes, that is super powerful what you just mentioned. It also shows that like how the body can like hold what the mind hasn't processed as well. And you kind
100%.
of saw that in your physical health. Like now you say that you have no health issues and maybe we can quickly touch on that as well. But
Yeah,
how
for
would
sure.
you explain that to someone who was told that their conditions would be permanent?
I was told that.
Yeah.
It's wild. I was very blessed to have a mother who has been a nurse for 47 years or something like that. I don't know, a lot of time. Um, and also went down the whole natural therapies route because she realized what she was just seeing no results in her medical work. And just so many things happening that were becoming worse because of a lot of things to do with, like, again, we love the medical community for a lot of reasons, and it's very behind in a lot of things as well. So I was very blessed to have that influence in my life. The influence that was like, don't take Panadol unless you freaking absolutely need it, or yeah, antibiotics are going to destroy your gut, so let's try and avoid them. But of course, I moved away from home for over a decade, so I did all the things, and then it got
Mm-hmm.
really awful. Um, but that was a blessing that I at least had that installation in my consciousness, that point of reference, which I know so many people don't. So many of us in the world have grown up with the white coat. You trust the white coat. That's the only way. And I get it. I get that. And that's the familiarity. And then anything outside of that is almost like a threat to your safety. That's how the brain perceives anything that's outside of what we believe is familiar. Um, and so for me, like the sicker I became, I knew that there was an emotional aspect to it, obviously. Like there were so many things happening emotionally for me that just could not resolve. And I had little resources like books and stuff, and I had the awareness of eating better and that type of thing. But I also had no money at the time. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would have loved to have eaten all the organic foods, but even that these days was not going to be enough. So I had to, do those little steps of starting the story and opening up a little door and opening up a little door to find things like the supplement that I love or the particular nervous system practices that I love and the certain ways that I eat now. Like that all came slowly for me to tie in. I think I really had to create some stability in the physical symptoms I was having before I could really get into the emotional cause. um, I do believe that we can resolve illness purely from an emotional level. And in this day and age, it's a challenge just to do it with that because there are so many things that our bodies are taking in that it's creating so many layers of stress. And probably like you've experienced working with people struggling with fertility, clients in the past of mine used to make jokes. It's like, don't come near cat because you'll get pregnant. Because I would usually just help them like change the story a little bit and take a few layers of stress off in their diet or in what some area of their life, and then suddenly they'd fall pregnant. And
Mm-hmm.
it was never like this whole huge thing that had to be done. It was never one particular thing. It was usually just like, how can we just offload some of the layers of stress? Because your incredible body knows what to do. She just can't because she's freaking tired and she's trying to just survive and run all your major organs. And especially with a lot of my core issues were reproductive. And for fibroids specifically, it's a lot about betrayal in relationships. It's a lot to do with mother wounds and that type of thing. So I got to go fully into just every possible betrayal I'd ever had, that my mother and her mother had ever had. I did lots of like hypnotherapy. I did like past life regressions. I did all the things. And I just have been in a boot camp for many, many years doing this when I could have been out partying or sleeping around or drinking myself into oblivion or something. But for some reason, I just kept holding the projection of like, my future kids will not have to go through
Mm-hmm.
this. My future partner will not have to deal with like the mess that potentially is here, which then also does make it harder to find a partner because there's not a lot of men doing, or not even not, they don't need to be doing this level of work, but yeah, able to understand emotional intelligence is a fun one, but I digress. Uh, so yeah, I think might have gotten off your question a
No,
little
no,
bit, but
no.
yeah,
For men, it's a lot different. It for men, if they can hold this level of
yeah,
like emotional capacity for the woman, that's really like all they need to
that's
do
it.
at this
They
point,
are
right?
very simple beings.
Yeah, but it's good. I think for a
Yes,
woman with a lot of depth, they need somebody like that to kind of hold the
100%.
ground for them, be that container for them. And I want to go back because you mentioned that my mother was also a nurse and getting to grow up with that. And I went into biomedical science and learned all about that. And she always taught me to like question the white quote, the white coat, right? And
Yeah.
I never actually realized that people go to the doctors and that's the resource that they get and then they take it and go. I never knew that like people just trusted the doctors. I always questioned them. And when I did live alone, or when I am living alone, I did have, I went on the birth control and things like that. My mom was against it, but I was just in
Mm.
so much, like, I had PCOS growing up. I healed it naturally as well, but I had so many bad, like, outbursts of, like, cysts and, like, horrible cramps that it was really the only thing. And that's a difference that I've noticed is that when you mention, like, healing it the natural way, the somatic way, it is a lot of work, right? And I find that medicine, like modern day medicine, is a very quick relief from that. You don't have to go through those pains to get it resolved. It's very quick, but it's a masker because as soon as you get off the birth control, as soon as you get it, gonna come right back, and it did. So I had to go through that. I had to be initiated into that. And that was the hardest few years of my life, to learn where this stems from. And there's actually a lot of research that shows that, women with ovarian cancer or cysts or fibroids, it comes from the generational healing that needs to be done, it comes from stress put on women nowadays. It just is a lot of chronic illnesses and mental diagnoses that are very in tune with your womb. So that's why I work with women with their wombs, because everything I do in this world is for my future children. So I want to be able to heal that so that I'm the cycle breaker that allows them to live their most authentic life.
To be able to have those conversations with them and
Mm-hmm.
share. I say to my clients sometimes as well, because a lot of my clients are mothers and they're usually on this journey of learning how to do all these things. And they come to me, they're like, I yelled at my kids again, or I'm so frustrated, or I did this thing with my child like a couple of years ago that has probably ruined her. And I'm like, no, like it is so powerful that they get to experience the contrast of someone, a parent, a friend, whoever's in your life who might be a bit chaotic, to experience the contrast though as a child of a parent who was a mess. Let's call it a hot mess, an unconscious hot mess, and then feel them and witness them learn and practice and get better. Like, what a powerful thing for a child to witness and to experience. Because, yes, we can work to be as prepared to be mothers as we can be. And I love that that is an intention for you, and you will be such a wonderful mother. And we're all going to still have like our children will be our biggest reflections and projections of everything we haven't worked on yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, but I think it's so powerful to know that even in the mess, the children get to learn from the mess and then the learning and then the practicing the new way. Like that's so much more powerful than just the perfect parent ready on day one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
It's much more
and
of a
so to have those
conscious
full,
choice. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, now before we keep going, I do want people to know what you have available right now, because I know there are women listening who need exactly what you offer. So walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, I have a number of different resources at this point in time. And I have simplified things down lately to, I guess, if people are new to my world, then I invite them to read my book, which is a very salacious and exciting journey of that 10 years that I spent figuring things out, let's just say. There's a lot of interesting stories in there that really help you to get to know the things that I've navigated, at least in that regard. And so many of the things that I learned that were amazing to learn. I have a great 21-day challenge that I recently redid. It's called the 21-day Chosen Challenge, which a lot of people are loving again, which is just a 21 days of great, really fun audios that will just help to start to open up that new line of thinking, those steps in that new direction. But that for the main thing that I do, I've run a mastermind since 2021 officially, where I run a weekly call. We have a group chat Monday to Friday, and then my whole program archive, which has my programs around wealth mindset, around building business, around relationships and communication, which is my favorite thing because we touched a little bit earlier on like the differences between how men work and how women work. And you even just said then, like it's we don't need a man to have done all of this work on himself. He just needs to be able to hold a woman who has. And I think that that's a really big thing that's been misconstrued in the self-development spiritual worlds is for the last 5 years or so, there's been a lot of trying to get men to do therapy that's for women rather than men do therapy for men. And we are so different. Our brains work so differently. There's a great initiative that I heard of in Australia. I think it's called like the men's shed or something, because men process emotion in such different ways and they integrate and transmute it in such different ways. They don't sit around in circles talking about their feelings and lighting candles and burning pieces of paper. We love that. That's good for us. Women need that, but men just need to get together and solve some freaking problems and like maybe like get some aggression out and have a fight or something. Like when men are, we anyway, I'm digressing. But I think there's a lot that I learned from some incredible mentors who have been, married for 30, 40 plus years, who have got great relationships and success in their lives. So I decided to learn from them about how to build relationships, and there's communication stuff that I learned from them that is just such a simple game changer that I would love to be taught in schools. And I've had a lot of clients ask me to create homeschool programs, which may happen eventually one day. But for now, yeah, people can come and be part of the mastermind if they feel so called to. And I love holding women in that space.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. So all of that is linked in the show notes. And if you want to connect with Kat, she has her Instagram, which will also be in the show notes as well. You did touch on a really good point about how men need a different kind of therapy. It just works wonderfully with a guest I just had who runs
Mm,
retreats for men when it and he kind of takes them through the threshold of just like
yeah.
he didn't have those resources for himself, so he created it, and it's kind of like this brotherhood of like going to Peru and going through this experience together. Like it's like men all together, and I thought that was such a beautiful thing that you touched on because it relates to another guest that I've had. Even though it was your spotlight and promo time, it was
No,
wonderful
no, no.
that you
And I
shared that.
love I love hearing those stories. So many beautiful and simple spaces for men that are just that. Like, and again, if we think about the past generations that have brought all of us into this world, those men had to go through hell. Their fathers had to, and their fathers passed that on to them. Like, there's not really been for so many people this. Like, I was blessed with parents who stayed together, like even though they've got their own issues, but still I had that kind of grounding of, okay, we work through anything, we just
Yeah.
figure it out, we stay together, we love each other. But so many, like more than 50% of people come from broken homes. So
Mm-hmm.
that's well more than 50% of people in the world, men in the world, who don't have a reference point for relationships being an amazing thing that can heal your whole life. They don't have a reference point for how to be a man and how to build yourself and your success and a family. So again, it's like that brain trying to keep you safe. Why would they build a relationship when all they've seen is that makes life worse? And so that's where I think it's so powerful to have a bit of space and compassion and let the men, like, you don't have to cheer men on, but I think it's so powerful when we just take our foot off the gas of the men hate
Mm-hmm.
and blame and shame. I get it. I have been abused and hurt in so many more ways than I will ever share online. And that doesn't change the world. As I say to my audience lately, I'm like, look, I don't know. I don't know the solution. All I know is there might be a bit of time before your guy shows up. And so, what are we going to do in that time?
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to stress about trying to date in the worst climate that there possibly is? Are we going to hate? Are we going to hardcore hustle boss babe? Or are we going to find something else? Are we going to design something else? And so I love hearing those stories that men
Yeah.
are doing that, because that's kind of my conspiracy theory I created. I was like, girls, it's happening. We're just not seeing it fully come out yet. We've got to relax. And I'm going to share with you, maybe we can end on this, a final analogy that a girlfriend of mine always uses with me, because she works with the womb as well. She does a lot of cycle support, and just knows everything about fertility and how, like, the things that we weren't taught in school. But most of us know that the egg does not go and find the sperm. She comes out if she's healthy enough, and she only allows, like, the sperm has to come all the way up through so many challenges. And if he's healthy enough, he will get there. And she still assesses and only allows in the healthiest. She's
Yes.
like, be the egg. She's
Yes.
like, you don't have to be going out there trying to find the sperm. And yes, to be fair, there's a lot of, for lack of better terms right now, sperm out there
Mm-hmm.
who are wanting the egg to just come and find them. But that's not what is going to create. We won't even say baby, because not everyone wants babies, but it's not what's going to create the thing that you want. So,
Yeah.
what if for now, any woman who's resonating with this gets this permission piece to be the egg, to get healthy, like get grounded, get around other women who are like that, who allow you to be the woman you want to be, and just prepare and prepare. Because the more we're doing that, the more these men are in the shadow, not shadows, but in these groups and really working on themselves, and they're going to be coming out and looking for that
Mm-hmm.
healthy woman to
Mm-hmm.
assess them and accept them.
That's a beautiful analogy. I tell people that a lot, actually, where I'll add on to that, where the egg is actually drawn to the sperm as well. So it's
Yeah,
not the fast. We've always been told it's the fastest sperm wins the race, but that's
yeah,
actually not true. So
yeah.
be the woman and follow your desires. If your desire is there to have a family, to have kids, don't shame yourself because this world isn't built on that structure right now, because that is still your desire and that needs to be honored. And if you continue to take that desire and say, hey, I don't have my husband right now, but he is coming and I can do my best to be my best self and heal and live my life until he comes and like plops on my lap, then that's all you need to do. Live out those desires because they will come true. And for the time being, you can give yourself that. And yeah, be the egg, like in the analogy that Kat used. And I also want to mention that when it comes to like that negative feedback loop, right? Of, you mentioned the 50-50, where like 50% of marriages end in divorce. But we also have to remember that 50% of marriages also stay together.
Yeah.
And we are both brought from families that their parents are still together. And there's so much to learn from that, because
Yeah.
I find that a lot of people they get a platform for, and they'll talk about what it was like to be a child of divorce, but it's also, there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of learning that comes from children that come from families that are together. And don't
Right.
let the 50% scare you, because 50% of marriages that are also successful are a lot of people too, and they chose that love. You always choose love. So yeah.
Absolutely. It's such a good point. And what I was thinking as you were saying that is that a lot of the times it's the ones who didn't stay together or didn't come from someone who stayed together who are the loudest online and are very favored by the algorithm because algorithms favor pain and drama and this divide. And so it's always, even if it's not in your sphere right now, find those people. Like I love learning from people like Tony Robbins or the Cardones, or like say what you will about these people. Some people have opinions about them, but I'm like, they've built, like, who else do I love? Like Dr. John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Like these old school people who have been through all the phases of the world and are just, it's the basics.
Energy of creating and being together is consistency with anything in this world. If you want to build a business, if you want to go to school, if you want to have a successful anything, successful relationship, you need to consistently show up to it. And both recipients do.
Totally get it because I really, there's so much dating advice online and so much relationship advice online, especially about finding a partner. And, he's got to be a certain height and he's got to have money and he's got to have this and he's got to not like tennis and he's got to like whatever. And I'm like, no, you get clear on your core values, the core values of something that, okay, if these are like a solid foundation, and then we can build off that. We don't have to have all the same likes. We don't have to do all the same things. Um, but if the core values are there, like for me, like core value, health, actually taking care of your health, because I haven't done all this health work to be with a man who's been unhealthy for 20 years and makes me sick during my pregnancy. Health is a big one for me. And then some kind of like awareness of the past, like doesn't have to have done tons of work, but just awareness of like, I'm not going to do that again. And I'm willing to work on it. And then three for me is a vision of the future that he's already working towards.
As women, it's our duty to uphold these core values that Kat mentions, because if you don't, you are self abandoning yourself. A man can abandon you, sure, but
Yeah.
don't ever abandon yourself, because that is going to lead to resentment. And it will be tested. My last relationship, all of a sudden, you thought all the core values were there, and then they shift and they no longer want
Yeah.
kids
The
in
shift.
marriage. They no longer want kids in marriage, and you're like, oh, this is a test to be like, am I going to abandon myself because I love this person and I don't want to end it abruptly? Or be like, hey, these are still my core values and these are some things that cannot be compromised. Like, yes, you can compromise on the lighter hair or the features or if you surfs, but you cannot compromise on your core values. So get real with your core values if that's something that you can take from this, the way
100%. And
women.
like you said, that can be hard as well. There's a couple of stories in my book specifically about that where one was the long-term situationship. Another was like the next person who I finally, after many years on my own, felt like, oh, this is a thing. And very similar. There was a shift.
Yeah.
Suddenly, I'm none of the things that I said I was. And yeah, I had that opportunity, that open door of like, let's be friends, let's just see what
Mm-hmm.
happens. And like, I know from his like standpoint of his psychology, like what that is the little boy freaking out about things working out, running away, self-sabotaging, going and sleeping with the whole town. So clearly it was not my
Mm-hmm.
person, less his cotton socks. But I remember in both those stories, like there was a moment, like a sleepless night where I had to be like it was just me and God. And I was just like, what do you want from me here? And like, what, just what? And it's, you're in that full nervous system response of fear and scarcity, and you're being like, everything is unsafe all of a sudden. But when you have those core values, it's like, that's the grounding thing that's holding you.
It's the boundary that you have to be. If you got to be a bad guy in somebody else's story, that's somebody else's story. I think the shift and what I've learned from relationships is that when these men shift on you, it's really that you presented the woman that you worked so hard towards and you built these core values are going to make them uncomfortable. Or maybe not, they never got to think about it. Maybe they
Yeah,
never thought about kids or marriage until they met you. So they get clearer. And so you bring a lot of clarity, even if it's they see that clarity and they run away from it, hey, that's better because exactly like Kat said, you don't want to be faced with something that happens. This is the person that's going to navigate like the death of your parents or navigate through pregnancy and how, scary that can be. So if they can't even get through like the core values of it all, that is it's actually a blessing in disguise.
it is. And it's like I have so much compassion as well for men or women who find themselves in a moment like that, because I know it happens both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's not even, it's just that unknown, right? Especially if like all of my examples are people who have either come from broken homes or homes where there's been deaths and lots of horrible things happen. So like this open door to like fairy tale, like things actually working out, this calm person that I'm with actually wants to build a life with me. That's freaking terrifying to their brain.
Mm-hmm.
Life threatening to their brain if that's not familiar to them. If they've never seen a relationship work out, if they don't have any healthy men around them or men in marriages that they aspire to be like, which so many men don't, their brain sees that prospect as life threatening, which causes the freak out. So I have a lot of compassion for it. I still have a closed door for it when
Mm-hmm.
it happens, and I communicate that gracefully and like move forward. And it's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think having that compassion of like, oh, that must be so maddening that you cannot stop your own brain from shutting down the thing that you actually want because it's unfamiliar
You
and
can
it's
have
untrusted.
compassion and not have to help them heal. I think as a
Oh yeah.
healer,
Oh yeah.
I've learned I'm like, "Oh, I can see
Oh
I can
yeah.
see that like this is happening. Let me help navigate it." That is not your position to do that. That is their inner work and their journey that you're already past that. You're onto a different kind of up leveling. And if they have to take that initiation to start the first level while you're on level 5, you cannot. It's just not a clear. That's abandoning yourself as well, is stepping into a healer.
100%. And I have been that girl.
Yes, I've been
Any
a
of my
lot.
friends who will watch
Mm.
this will be laughing because even like 2, 3 years ago, I was that girl.
Well, Kat, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast today. This was such a lovely conversation. You shared so many good messages, and you have so many resources that are available for people to find. And yeah, is there anything else you wanted to say before we end off?
No, this has been a beautiful conversation. Thank you
It
for having
has.
me. And yeah, just, I mean, of all the things that I do, just find me at Katrina Burke on Instagram. And I'm always open to having a chat when I have the space. So yeah, I just love to, I think that's where it all started for me, is that online used to be a space where we would connect. And yes, like when someone has a service, there might be a sale at some stage in there. But I think it's so important to as we've been talking about a lot today, to get around women who have the same dreams, who are working on the same things, and maybe, yes, have, like you have, so many different pieces that have been working for you and others so that you don't have to fumble in the dark, like I'm sure you might have for many years. And I know I
Mm-hmm.
did for many years and spent way too much money on things that were useless. So yeah, wherever you guys go to, whoever's listening to this, like get around the women who have the same values as you, who have the same vision as you, and build together and come into that safety and security together. So powerful.
Exactly. And use social media as a self expression rather
Yeah.
than getting all those followers. And
Yeah.
yeah,
No
so
performance.
no more performing. Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
what we're going to take into the new world. But all right, Kat. Well,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for your time. I'll let you go now. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of Unclocked and Unbothered. What this conversation taught me today was the most radical thing a woman can do in a world that has an opinion about everything she should want is actually to know what she wants and hold it, even if it costs her, even if she has to be the bad guy in somebody else's story, even when it means walking into one more season alone. Kat taught us to be the egg. If you're a woman who has been told your dreams are outdated or your standards are too high or the right person is never going to show up, this episode is your permission slip to stop listening to that. Grab Kat's book, Sleeping with the Guru, on Amazon, link in the show notes. The 21-day Chosen Challenge is also linked there, and you can find her at Katrina Burke _ on Instagram. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it. Subscribe so you never miss a Monday drop, and please leave a review. It helps this show reach the women who need it most. You can find me in all the links in the show notes, and I'll see you in the next Monday episode. Stay unclocked and unbothered.